This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another edition of the Ice Guys Players Suite. Ian Cameron, and someone we had on the Players Suite a couple of years ago is back with us here. Calder Brooks. At the time he was playing pro hockey. Now he's recently retired from pro hockey, but he's not retired from the Ice Guys show. In fact, we'll be seeing a lot of Calder Brooks moving forward. He'll be a recurring weekend guest on the Ice Guys show this season, and we're looking forward to having him to break down the games and preview them this season in the NHL on various weekends from a betting perspective. Calder, welcome. You're officially a part-time recurring member of the Ice Guys family. Welcome to the fam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and looking forward to it. I think it'll be a cool opportunity, and talk a little bit of hockey and other sports and some betting and some things that I'm reasonably familiar with. So it's definitely cool. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. We look forward to having you on a part-time basis. We're going to see a lot of people part-time. Matt Robinson is a guy that's played college hockey and one of our good, one of the people you know very well. He'll be back with us twice a week. We're certainly going to have Danny DeKaiser on, Eddie Lack on a couple of times throughout the months and throughout the season. Jason Demers wants to be on the show. Will he be is a question because he's busy as fuck. He's doing San Jose radio analyst this year. Part-time in the booth, and he does NHL Network, so he's very busy with that. And but he's going to try to join us every now and then. By the way, I got to mention it: the San Jose and the Utah, because we have 32 team preview videos that we did and podcasts. Jason Demers joined us for both San Jose and Utah, those two teams, because he's very familiar with them, and he actually played for both of those teams in his career. That guy is. I thought I had energy. I thought I was talkative. I thought but Jason Demers has got me beat. He was absolutely spectacular. He was hilarious as shit. He's become our good friend of the show. Make sure you check those out. Jason Demers is one hell of a character. I'll tell you that right now, no doubt. Cole, before we get into NHL talk, first of all, let's get a life update. You have just recently retired from pro hockey. Tell us about how it came to that decision and just your reflection on hanging up the skates and looking back on the hockey journey that you apparently have has come to an end here.
Yeah, I guess I played this last season in Denmark, and then unfortunately just had some injuries, and there was just a multitude of reasons, I guess, where I thought about it for a little bit this spring, into May and June, and then I guess by the end of June, I came to the conclusion that it was probably time and just best for me to move on and hang up the skates and kind of move on to the next part of life and use my business degree and see what I can manage to do here with that and just sort of get something going in the business world. So I've been exploring that for a few months here and sort of just networking, exploring different options, seeing what I might want to do, or just start out in and get my feet wet a bit there. And it's been a very different summer than I'm used to. It was kind of just very weird, and especially the first little bit, and then a lot of my good friends still go away and play, so it's just been an interesting transition, but it's exciting. I think I'm at that point in my life, and I had a good career, and I'm thankful for a lot of the places I've got to play, and the leagues and people I've met, and been a good ride.
Look, that's all you can ask for. You put everything into it. You enjoyed it while it was there. And everybody's in a different boat. You never know how long it's going to last. How many different places and teams it's going to take you, and how many years. But once it comes to an end, look, we've talked to so many different players on the show recently retired, and that first few months after retirement, finding that next, job or career path, that's always a transition. That's not the easiest. So we wish you all the best, and of course, we're going to be seeing you here on this show moving forward this season, like I said, on weekends, and looking forward to having Calder Brooks join us to break down some NHL. So with that in mind, are you ready to break down some NHL here for the upcoming season? Because this is going to be mostly about Calder's opinions here as far as the NHL upcoming season. We've done all the team previews. I've spoken about all the teams already, and we're going to have our live Eastern and Western Conference season previews as well that I'll be talking about more in depth with each team. So this is all about our guest here and what he thinks about some of these teams. Let's start with teams that you're optimistic about coming into this season. Teams that you think they don't always have to be the teams that are contending for a Stanley Cup either. They could be teams that may be laying in the weeds a little bit, teams that maybe underachieved last year that you think could be primed for a big-time improvement this year, and maybe some other people may not be thinking that with that certain team. So really anyone, but name one team to start that you think compared to last year, going to be some improvement, maybe a team that's improved and maybe some people not expecting it.
Yeah, the Devils come to mind for me right away. I think they finally got their goalie, which is, just it's a huge part of hockey. You need to have a good goalie, and I think Markstrom can be that for them. If they can stay healthy, like they got a deep roster. I think they're a really, really solid team. Hamilton was out for them last year. Like I think if they can stay healthy, they'll be really, like, for sure a playoff team and have a chance to kind of make a little bit of a run. I don't really think many people talk about them much. It's, the Rangers are the talk of the town out there. And but yeah, I like the Devils.
Yeah, I mean, the Devils, there's no doubt they're going to be better. My question with the Devils, like, there's no doubt. I mean, Hamilton's going to be back. Brett Pesce's a huge boost on the blue line as well, getting him from the Carolina Hurricanes. Defending was their problem last year. There's no question. Even their power play underachieved a little bit. That was surprising. I don't know if that's going to replicate itself this year. I think there's just too much firepower. I think there's just too many good offensive players and skill and finishability up front to not have a good power play this year. When you look at Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, Dawson Mercer, who, of course, came on strong last year. You bring in Stefan Nason, too. That's going to help the power play, Calder. You remember in Carolina, this guy was a power play magnet for them. He'd get his big body and big frame in front of the net, really cause problems for the goalie. He'd tip-ins, deflections, getting that loose change in front of the net. He scored a lot of his power play goals that way. And if Sheldon Keefe knows what he's doing, he's going to be using Stefan Nason this year on the power play for the New Jersey Devils. So he's definitely going to be a nice addition. The blue line, you mentioned it. Dougie Hamilton's healthy. Jonas Siegenthaler, Brendan Dillon is brought in from the Winnipeg Jets for a little thump and sandpaper and physicality on the blue line as well. They like Simon Nemec for this Devils team. He's going to get opportunity. Now, there are some injuries right now. Brett Pesce, who I was talking about, lower leg injury right now, and he's going to miss the first game of the year, or the first 2 games of the year against Buffalo over in Czechia. So it's going to be interesting to see, is this going to be just a week-to-week thing? Because it's day-to-day right now with him. It's not anything long-term, but kind of an ominous start
too already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 2D there. Hughes is out,
and Luke Hughes, yep.
I think it was 6 to 8 weeks with his injury, but he was injured.
They say he's still anywhere from a month to 2 months away from coming back, Luke Hughes.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're already, but we'll see if they're healthy. I think they'll be good.
They will. The defense is better. I'll tell you what, without Luke Hughes and without Brett Pesce, Dougie Hamilton's escape. I'm looking at that. That could be a bit of a pond hockey game over there with Buffalo, New Jersey, and with Lindy Ruff. They're Lindy Ruff's going to let these guys attack. Mm-hmm. They lost their offensive mojo last year, Buffalo. So just looking ahead to those 2 games in Czechia, we could see some goals in those 2 games, just because Brett Pesce is the biggest difference maker, I think, defensively, as far as shutting you down on that Devils team of the changes they made. And, of course, he's not going to be available for those first 2 games. And you mentioned it with Jacob Markstrom. I didn't love this. And who's your favorite NHL team again? I think I know.
You know what? I root for Calgary.
That's what I thought. Calgary was close to being your favorite team. Yeah. So Jacob Markstrom well. The one thing I didn't love from him the last 2 years is he gave up a first goal of the game, in the first shot or the first 5 minutes. It's crazy how often it happened to him. Yet all that being said, though, you're 100% right. He's still an upgrade from Vitek Vanacek. And all these goalies that the New Jersey, Schmid, all these goalies that the New Jersey Devils have had, they've all been mid goalies, and Jacob Markstrom's better than that. So by default, it's an upgrade. I just hope he doesn't have those early situations like he did in Calder. Like it was just before you even sit down in your seat to watch the game, there's a goal going in. So that's something he's got to work on.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know what the deal was with that in Calgary. It was very bizarre, and I think they were talking about trading him a lot throughout the year, and just I think it's just a fresh start in New Jersey, and it's different conference. He'll play against different teams, like quite a bit more, and it would be interesting to see. And I think it's good for Calgary. I think Wolfie deserves a good chance there. When I was there, at least, like he's a stud. He's just a crazy, like, dynamic goalie, even though he's so small. So I think I'm excited for him there too in Calgary. So I think it's good.
Yeah, Dustin Wolf getting that opportunity. You'll be able to meet Alex B. Smith when you're joining us throughout the season on weekends. And Alex is a huge fan of Dustin Wolf and thinks very highly of him and thinks he's going to have a good year with the Calgary Flames. And Alex is the guru of goalies because he keeps goalie power rankings and throughout the season. And he always has pretty accurate measurement of the drop-off between the number one goalie to the backup and then the backup to the third goalie on the depth chart. So he reads goalies pretty well, Alex. And Dustin Wolf, he definitely likes the possibilities and the prospects of him being a pretty good NHL goalie. How about another team that you like going into the year?
I like Nashville. I mean, well, if we're talking about teams that maybe I think can have a huge jump from the previous season,
which is the best way to talk about it. Like we all know Dallas is going to be good.
Yeah,
but they're not necessarily making a big jump from last year.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I like the way we're doing it. We're going about it here. We're talking about teams that actually could jump and take a big leap from last year. Exactly, and they fit the mold. Nashville, yes.
Yeah, I think. They made some really nice signings. Like Dallas is obviously going to be great. I have them, getting to the conference finals again. But Nashville's a really unique team. I think people kind of forget about them as well too. They're, not a huge market team. They made some good moves. You got Stammer coming in, and he's won, not only is he a great player, but like they bring in guys that have won Stanley Cups. And I think that's a big thing that maybe doesn't get talked about a ton is you need guys in the room that have a winning pedigree. And obviously, he can go up and score 40 goals pretty easily, or just, that's something he can do. And I think they have a lot of firepower over there. And I think Nashville could make a little run here as well over in that conference.
About that, I was muted. Yeah, you and I are reading from the same playbook on this one. There's no question. I like Nashville a lot. And you talk about timing. It's not just what you bet in this, industry and trying to make money and profit from betting on sports. It's not just what you bet. It's when you bet sometimes with certain teams. Like, do you get the good number? Do you get the best price with a certain team? And for me, with the Nashville Predators, Calder, I bet them the day after the Stanley Cup final ended with Edmonton and Florida. And at that time they were plus 3,000. They were 30-1 to win the Stanley Cup. And the reason I took them the day after the Stanley Cup final is because I was trying to just, obviously the futures get dropped right after the Stanley Cup final ends. So that's when I saw the futures prices for this season for the first time. And I just saw Nashville at 30-1. Well, okay. This is a team that obviously played a lot better than people thought last year. Nobody thought Nashville was going to be a playoff team going into last season. Sure enough, they had that great second half of the year. The Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist line, that top line just dominated for them. They certainly got enough supporting cast offense. You got Thomas Novak and some of these other players chipping in for them at times offensively, but that top line carried them offensively. They got a solid performance from their blue. Fabro has really opened my eyes how good he is. Dante Fabro. This is a guy that's really gotten better. We know Yossi's incredible. and he had another great season last year. There's no doubt. And Luke Schen's been a nice stabilizing defensive force on that blue line. Fellow Saskatchewan man, just like yourself, Luke Schenn. And then you have, of course, UC Saros in net for the Nashville Predators, who was obviously had a great year. It all came together for them, and they had a great second half of the year, and they lost in the first round to Vancouver, but I thought they were admirable in defeat against the Vancouver Canucks. I thought they gave Vancouver a really tough series. Like, that was not an easy series to win for the Vancouver Canucks. It was a very, very tough one. So I looked at that team, didn't really expect much, but great coaching job by Andrew Brunette, too, who's showing why he deserved another opportunity after, I think, Florida threw him under the bus a couple of years ago after that playoff exit. But he deserved another shot. He did a great job coaching them. They got to the playoffs. And my first thought was, in betting Nashville at 30-1 that day after the Stanley Cup final ended, was Barry Trotz, the GM, is going to see that the nice year they had and say, I think we should upgrade this team and push for more, push to be better, push to be maybe even a Western Conference contender this season. And sure enough, he went absolutely apeshit in free agency, this guy, with what he brought in. Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, proven Stanley Cup performers and Stanley Cup champions. Brady Shea, who's been in the playoffs with two different teams, the Rangers and the Hurricanes, the last several years. Playoff guy for players, not just great players, but players that have played meaningful minutes, big games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Right away, that makes this team a lot better. And so the moment all those signings and transactions happened, Calder, with the Predators on July 1st in free agency, all of a sudden the price tumbles down to 20-1, down to 17-1, and that's pretty much where it is right now. Anywhere from 15 to 17-1. So goes back to my original point. It's not just what you bet, it's when you bet. I just had that sense that if I bet Nashville now 30-1, what if they upgrade in free agency? What if they upgrade this team? The price is going to move a little bit. So the fact I jumped in early and got a great price was just a good sense of timing for me and what Nashville might end up doing, and played out well for me.
Yeah, did it ever. You got them double to what I could probably get them at right now. It's 17-1 on mine. Yep. So yeah, they'll be interesting. I love what they did. I think it's awesome. They've been kind of a team where they, they're not really in it to win the Stanley Cup. They're going to make playoffs most likely. Like, they're a good team, but they kind of needed some pieces to really actually give them a shot. I think Carolina was kind of honestly similar to that, where they needed just a few more dynamic pieces, and Nashville went out and did that. So I think they'll be really, really good this year for sure.
There's no question they're going to be a lot better. And you know what's the thing about Marchessault? Vegas didn't pony up, so there's a little chip on his, and there's no doubt there's a big chip on the shoulder of Steven Stamkos, because that was pretty much as bad an ending to one man's career in one place as it was for Stamkos in Tampa Bay. That a captain, a guy that's been a lifelong Bolt, a lifelong member of the Tampa Bay Lightning for his whole career, and yet he gets that garbage slap in the face, low ball offer from Julian Brisebois and the management team of the Tampa Bay Lightning. That definitely is going to stay with Steven Stamkos. And I think on the ice this year, it's going to propel him to show Tampa especially, but the entire NHL. There's still a lot of gas left in this tank.
Yeah.
I can still get it done. And you better believe it. I don't know if you're going to be on one of our shows during any of the Nashville versus Tampa Bay games this year. Of course, there'll only be two because they're in different conferences. But you better believe Steven Stamkos player props are going to be worth a look in those games against Tampa Bay when he faces his old team, whether it's to score a goal, to score even 2 goals or a hat trick even, or get multiple points, whatever props you can find on Steven Stamkos when he plays the Tampa Bay Lightning. We talk about those revenge game spots, player facing his old team. That's one of the tried and true player prop betting angles, Calder, of the Ice Guys show the last few years. Player facing his old team. Unfucking canny how many times they have a huge game against their old team.
Yeah, it's funny how that always seems to work. In all levels of hockey, it's honestly remarkable. It's almost it happens more often than not. The guy comes in and scores a goal against his old team, or whatever the case is. The goalie, if it's a goalie, gets a shutout or just gets the win. So yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out on that when they do meet up there.
Definitely an angle to roll with. You get my emails for hockey, so you'll see on the player props. You're going to notice some throughout the year when I'm listing the player props that I bet that there's definitely players when they're facing their old team on that player prop betting menu for me. It's definitely something that works out. And another thing with player props too, conceptually and just strategy, the players that move up the lineup, the players that go from the fourth line to the third line, or the fourth line to the second line, or the third line to the second line, or the third line to the top line, or even just second line to the top line. Those players, there's no adjustment in the price for them to score a goal or get a point or get an assist. There have been instances where, especially the third line to the second or top line shift in the lineup from a coach, where he just elevates a player. Hey, they're playing well. I'm going to see what he can do in a top six forward role. There's a lot of times that when they've been on the third line, they're plus 450 to score a goal. And then those first few games they're on the top line, there's very little, if any, adjustment in the price, and it's still like plus 450 for them to score a goal, even though they're on the first line and the top second line. So those are great, some of the greatest player prop betting spots that you will find. And we've mentioned them for years on this show. We've capitalized on them for years, those spots on this show. And there's another tip for you, Calder, as you begin your journey joining us throughout the season, recurring fashion on weekends. Guys moving up the lineup, great value with their player props.
Yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for some of those guys, and obviously maybe have a chat with you and see what you're thinking. And I'm not really I don't previously, like, I wasn't a serious researcher sort of better. I would kind of just go off what I
a couple bucks recreational, let's have some fun while we were watching the game. Exactly. A lot of people bet that way. Yeah.
It's obviously beneficial to do as much research and to get whatever angles you think you can get on to give you the best chance to find maybe some undervalued bets.
And if your goal is to win money and win hopefully serious money long term, you have to be that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And if it's more just for a little bit of entertainment on a game you're watching on Sunday, then that's a different story. But absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. But that's definitely something to keep. I've seen it constantly. That player that's on the third line, and there they are on the top line with, let's say, McDavid and whoever, if it was Edmonton. Here's McDavid at what? Minus 110, plus 100 to score a goal. Zach Hyman, probably plus 120, plus 140 to score a goal. And then you'll have that right wing guy that's on the top line with Hyman and McDavid that's been moved up from the third line. And they're like plus 350 or plus 400 to score a goal. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those are the players you.
I don't know if they put Skinner up there, but he's a guy that I guess their power play's set, but I feel like he could kind of maybe get some favorable matchups, kind of being in the weeds behind McDavid and Draisaitl, and kind of have he could have another 80-point season there, and because he doesn't really get talked about much, I don't feel like either, but he's a hell of a player, and if he gets a little bit of power play time, I don't know. They have a pretty nice setup there with that, but he's a guy that comes to mind where it's like if he gets slotted into Draisaitl, McDavid, on either one of their lines, he's going to get a lot of looks.
Well, this is a guy that scored 40 goals one time in his career in the past. So there's offense there from Jeff Skinner. It's funny when I talk about Jeff Skinner and even Stuart Skinner. There's two Skinners now in Edmonton, and every time I mention one of these players, Jeff or Stuart, named Skinner, I always throw out the Simpsons reference here on this show. Skinner. I always do that. Principal Skinner from, I'm gonna have to do that times two now when I'm talking Edmonton Oilers games this year, because there's two of them now on the same team, Jeff and Stuart. Skinner. I love doing that. People love it.
Completely different sizes of human beings, but that is funny.
Yep. Yeah, you're also now that Calder's going to be on the show on occasion here on the weekends, he's going to see how much of a nutcase I am sometimes. So he'll be, I'm sure, entertained by that. All right, moving on. All right, we've talked about the good, right? Couple of teams you like, right? New Jersey, Nashville, for significant improvement from last year, or at least a decent amount of improvement. How about the opposite direction? How about teams that were really good last year, primed for a decline this year or some regression this season upcoming? What's one team you think takes a step back here this season?
Yeah, it's tough to say because like I was thinking about it in terms of, teams going deep in the playoffs. Like Florida is a heck of a team. I don't really think they're going to have as good of a season. I think they're just going to be maybe going back to back cup finals and having just a little bit of they don't, it's not a lot of off time in the off season for them to kind of recover. And I think they're still going to make the playoffs. I think that Toronto, I kind of have that division of Florida being in the 3rd seed this year, which it might be crazy, but I just think like they've had back-to-back cup finals and there might just maybe just get off to a slow start or just not quite half the season that everyone's maybe expecting them to have this year. And sort of there might be a few other teams that kind of take a little bit of steam out of them. Not discredited, like I think they're still going to be a great team and make the playoffs, but it's not going to be like last year. I don't think, and we'll kind of see. I think a lot of it has to do if Bobrovsky is, his A+
He's
game.
played a lot of hockey and he's not getting any younger. I get where your concerns are coming from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just curious about them to see sort of, how they kind of fare this year with just playing a lot of hockey.
And they play a physical forecheck style of game. That takes a lot out of you physically to play that way night in and night out, especially in the playoffs where they ramp it up even more. I think Alex was in agreement with me on this when we talked about the Florida Panthers in their team preview video. I think we expect them to be slow and sluggish out of the gate this year, that they could be, a bet against team early in the season and then maybe, catch that, find their stride as we get closer to the playoffs and the games get more important. They start to ramp it up again. Almost like a pace yourself type of 82-game season coming up for the Florida Panthers. So I could see them getting off to a slow start. Kind of feels like you agree there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I know they're kind of high up to even win the cup again this year. Like they have a great team. Yeah, I just think the amount of hockey they played, the style that they play.
Are you going to get 58 goals again from Sam Reinhart? Remember, that's a contract. That was a contract year for him last year, so he went above and beyond the Call of Duty.
I think that's a one-off year. Unbelievable for him. Perfect timing.
57, I should say. I was off by one. 57 goals. Okay. Yeah, it's still very good.
I think he could get 40 again. 45. I think 57 is. He just had a lot of things go right. He had an insane amount of power play goals, even just from that slot, that little quick 1T slot shot he has. Things worked, and I don't think he's going to have that same year. But we'll see. I think they're just going to be a little tired, especially to start with, having these last 2 postseasons that they did.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very. It makes sense. The handicap makes sense that Florida might be slow out of the gate and struggle early in the season. And I think when you look at it, it wouldn't surprise me to see that. Now, opening night against Boston, they'll be fired up because they don't like Boston. Boston doesn't like them. So maybe that night I don't bet against them. Doesn't mean I'm going to bet on them either. But after that, I put it this way: whoever they face after that opener against Boston next week, especially if they win that first game, then you might want to target a bet against them because they will be up for that game. They're raising the banner on home ice. The Bruins are just a natural rivalry that they have from facing them in the playoffs. 2 years in a row now? I believe they face the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's a great game to start on opening night, Tuesday, October 8th. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But I agree. I think Florida early, will maybe take a step back just a little bit. It's interesting, their lineup. You've still got Barkov, Bennett, Anton Lundell down the middle. The fourth line center looks like it could be someone new this year, so we'll have to wait and see. They brought back Verhaeghe, Reinhart. They signed to the big deal, the huge contract from last year, the incredible season. You still have Matthew Tkachuk. You have E2 Kuhlman, Luostarinen. You've got Anton Lundell, who I think took huge strides forward last year. Rodriguez was a great playoff performer. He actually had a kind of a mundane regular season, and then all of a sudden, here's Evan Rodriguez in the playoffs, who scored some really big fucking goals for them.
Yeah,
didn't he? Yeah, I mean, he played very well. The blue line, the depth is a little more concerning, because it's not that I don't like Adam Boquist. It's not that I don't like Nate Schmidt, but Nate Schmidt's now in the waning years of his career. At this point in time, I don't know if they're 1 through 6 nearly as good. Their top 4 is excellent. When you're talking Forsling, Ekblad, Kulikov, and Mikkola, that's really good. But again, you don't have OEL anymore. You don't have Montour anymore. Both of those guys moved on. So, a few more questions at the bottom 2, especially on that blue line. And then, like I said, Bobrovsky's not getting any older, and you're going to have Spencer Knight and Chris Drieger, fighting to back him up this year. So I get it. The concerns that it's just going to be very hard for Florida to duplicate that, to get to the Stanley Cup final and lose, to roar back to the Stanley Cup final last year and this time win, and then ask to be ready off the hop in October to be at your best and pedal to the metal. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I'd be taking them. I'd be taking the opposition off in the first 10 games. And you know what? Speaking of D, like Boston, they play. They went out and signed all the biggest D men they could find. Like McAvoy is their smallest D, and he's a tank. He's no slouch whatsoever.
Doesn't it seem we're getting back to the days of now everyone's loading up with size on the blue line again, because they're seeing that it's winning in the big playoff moments now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're big, tough, physical, like really hard to play, and that's a lot of that's playoff hockey. Like I think Boston's, they have all their guys are 6'3", 6'4", Zadorov 6'6", like Carlos 6'5". It's just like, man, it'd be tough as a forward to just having those guys bearing down on you like all the time, and in 7-game playoff series especially. So that's kind of another team where I think Boston could kind of be sneaky good if they get Swayman figured out. I think it's a joke what the
whole thing is a soap opera. It's a sideshow. It really is at this point. First of all, the mistake Sweeney made was flapping his gums publicly about the negotiations. You keep that behind closed doors. All you're doing is pissing off Swayman and his agent, and that's not going to make things easier for you to get the job done. That being said, it feels like Swayman and his agent are asking for the moon and then some, with the money. And I know he was great last year, but holy gosh, man, it's 1 year, one great year you've had, one really good year. Can we see more before we're ready to just throw $10 million at you, or close to it, or 9?
Yeah, I heard that Swayman's camp was asking for 8.5 and the Bruins offered 7.8.
That's a less than $1 million gap between the two sides. I mean, I've seen bigger gaps than that. So
yeah, but I guess when you're talking about, he wants an 8-year, so like it's a decent chunk of change over 8 years. So I mean, I don't know. Like I think 8x8 is perfectly fair if they were to offer that for him. And I don't really know why they wouldn't have it figured out like before almost that they dealt Allmark, because like he's your guy, and just a weird situation.
And if somehow Swayman is not re-signed, you're scrambling all of a sudden as far as your goaltending, the most important position, obviously, in hockey. Because I'm not sold on Jonas Korpisalo. Okay, I get it. He's going to play behind a better blue line than he had with Ottawa last year. I get it. So that should help him. But am I sold on him being an every night number 1 guy? Absolutely not. Even with the better blue line in front of him. And then you got Brandon Bussey, who's just a young kid. So that's why this is imperative to get something done. And certainly if they have to end up trading Swayman, and there's rumblings that he's almost at the point where he's ready to request a trade, obviously they're going to get a goalie back from whoever they trade Swayman to, but is it going to be a Swayman caliber goalie? That's the big question. Or someone that you fear is, they're going to need a number one guy to come back in any kind of Swayman trade, because I'm not sure Korpisalo can be a number one guy for them. So they're in a tough pickle right now, Calder. There's no question about that with the Swayman situation. All right, another team that you think may not be as good this year. Is there anyone you have in mind?
Well, I'm trying to think of it in like, relative terms that they had a good year last year. I want to think the Carolina, I don't really see them doing much. They had a pretty good year last year. They did kind of the same thing they've been doing for a while now. And yeah, I don't really see them, Gensel left, and yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to be kind of average again, and maybe, squeak into playoffs, but like, I don't have a lot of hope for them really making a run for anything. I think they're just lacking some pieces and not really.
One of those pieces in New Jersey now, Brett Pesce. We just talked about him. Yep.
Yeah, they lack some excitement, honestly, too. I think Jarvis could have he's kind of a guy that has come out of nowhere a little bit, and maybe he comes in and he has a huge year for them. And so they have guys that like could step up into roles, and they have a good team still. I think it's just like they don't excite me. I don't really think they're going to be maybe quite as good as they were.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I agree with that. That's another one I agree with. I think when you look at Carolina, their ceiling, I think, is Stanley Cup and contending for a Stanley Cup and going far in the playoffs still. But I think their floor is lower than it's been in years, where they might be life and death to make the playoffs this year as well.
Yeah. Well,
I think there's a pathway that could be possible, because I don't look at this team. What's been their foundation under Rod Brind'Amour? Defense. I look at this blue line now and what they've got. I like Jacob Slavin. He's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But Brent Burns is casualty sometimes in his own end. We like him skating the puck and power play, and he's a good shot, but he's not that able defender. And he was never a phenomenal defender, but he was better earlier in his career than he is now defensively in his own end. Orlov, has kind of been overrated the last couple of years. Remember, Boston got him, and he didn't have a great playoff. He's solid, but, I don't know if his best days are still ahead of him. Chatfield's kind of a skater, a rover, and he's actually improved defensively a lot, but, he's still not, I would say, a complete shutdown defenseman. And then you got the third pair, which is just a couple guys that can skate. Sean Walker's a great skater, more of an offensive-minded guy, but can struggle at times in his own end. And then times 10 of that was Shane Gostisbehere, who you brought in, who is definitely power play, offense, and very much a liability in his own end. So I don't know if that blue line has got that shutdown DNA, that they've had in years past. And then even in the forward group, I think there's more offensive flash than there is that tenacious two-way play up and down the lineup. When I look at especially Necas and Svechnikov, we'll see with Aho, Jarvis, that group, I think they're going to be able to score enough goals. I think the blue line is weaker defensively. And what if and I like Pyotr Kochetkov, the young goalie, but as of right now, it's not a guarantee he's the number one guy to begin the year, and I'm shocked by that. I can't believe they're so reluctant to give this guy the number one net, because Freddie Anderson, to me, we saw it in the Ranger series last year. That game they had to win to stay alive, he was a puddle in the third period. He was awful, some of those goals that went in. And yet it still might be starting the year with Freddie Anderson as their number one goalie. So you're right. I don't think they're with their foundation and what Rod Brind'Amour wants them to be, which is defense first, not as good there. And that to me has opened the door for Carolina to be weaker this year and maybe not nearly as good and be in a situation where instead of winning a division or contending for a division, Calder, they're fighting like mad just to make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. I think they not only maybe got worse, but like other teams around them got quite a bit better. So it's like I think the gap kind of opened up there in terms of where they're kind of sitting in the overall power rankings. So yeah, I think they're going to be a little in tough a little bit.
Absolutely, no question about that. All right, we'll go for another 5 to 10 minutes max. Just before we wrap up, though, and great stuff. You can tell Calder will be good breaking down actual games as we go throughout the course of the season. But player props, season long, player awards props. Now, come on, don't hold out on me here. You've got to have an opinion on the Calder Trophy. I mean, come on, Calder Brooks, Calder Trophy. You've got to have some kind of thought about who might win that. So, yeah, we'll start there then. Now that you mentioned that you have an opinion with that, the player awards market. This is another cool thing about all, whether it doesn't matter whether it's Bet365, FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, you name it. You can bet player awards now each and every season. Who's going to win every individual regular season award, Art Ross Trophy, the Calder Memorial. I just love your first name, by the way. I mean, that just smells hockey. It just feels like and sounds like hockey when someone with a name like that. So Calder Trophy, Frank J. Selke Trophy, Hart Memorial Trophy. You can bet all these at all these various sports books. But yes, the Calder Memorial Trophy, Rookie of the Year. And you have an opinion on it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I have two guys. I think Mitchkov is going to have a huge year. I know Tortorella had a pretty good little statement on him in a press conference about kind of saying like he's exactly what we've been sort of dying to have with his vision and his just pure, his raw like ability to make plays. And I think he's going to get the world of opportunity in Philly. And I really think, I know Celebrini kind of has a lot of talk around him, but I think the Sharks are just, they're going to be not a great team. And I think Celebrini will have a decent year. Obviously he's an unbelievable player, but I think Mitchkov is going to win the Calder. And my second guy actually is Logan Stankoven in Dallas. I saw that, I didn't think of him as a rookie just because he was so prominent in playoffs, but I think he's a really, really good player on a very good Dallas team. And if he does get the power play time and just sort of top 6 minutes that he should there, I think he could kind of have a sneaky good year and be in the race for that too.
All right, very good. I like both of those. Those are good options. Mishkov, and who was the other?
Stankoven.
I like that. And I like that. And Stankoven's a good pick, I think, because he's now going to get his first full year. He's already got some NHL seasoning, not just regular season, but playoffs. He played in 3 playoff rounds for the Dallas Stars through to the conference finals. God, that's got to make him only better for this year. That's got to help him for sure going into this year. So I like that one. That's the one I'm a little, the only reason I don't like Mishkov is because he's the favorite. I don't like the price, plus 350, but I can't argue with it. He's going to have a chance. There's no doubt that I see why he's favored. And even Celebrini, I don't love the price. Obviously, he could win it, but I like to get a little more bang for my buck in these awards markets. So for me, it starts with Stankoven at plus 500, even Cutter Gauthier with Anaheim at plus 550. And the one that I'm really liking is Lane Hudson for Montreal, plus 650, plus. I think that's good value on him because I think he's got the potential to have a phenomenal year. I even watched probably as much, if not more, college hockey last year than I ever have before. And watching him play at Boston University, the BU Terriers, he was a Terrier out there. He was phenomenal. He was excellent. He does everything well. He's really solid defensively too. Little undersized, but man, he can skate, shoot. Is a great offensive instinct type of defenseman. So I like his price there at plus 650. There's no question about that. Down the list, I'm trying to see if there's any players that might be worth a look as far as some longer shots go. Maverick Bourque at 30-1, another Dallas Star. I don't mind that price necessarily for him. Rutger McGroarty now at Pittsburgh with the Penguins. someone's going to have to step up and help that team offensively and help out Crosby and Malkin and Rust because there's a big drop-off now with Pittsburgh with their bottom six. They don't have the offensive depth they used to. So why not a guy like maybe Rutger McGroarty to step in there, give them a little offensive boost? So his price is around 20-1 right now to win the Calder. So there we go. How about some of the other awards markets? Was there anything you liked?
Yeah, I think Matthews and Marner are going to have huge seasons for the Leafs, like Marner especially. I kind of like Matthews for the Selke. I don't really think anyone thinks he's ever going to win that because he just scores so many goals, and he's kind of like he's in it for the Rocket every year and the other kind of top scoring awards. Like you can't pick Barkov for the Selke because he's at plus 130 here. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm not touching that, but at least Matthews is like plus 800, so I don't mind that. I think he's not really talked about in that sense there. And I think him and Marner, and I think the Leafs in general are just going to be really, really good this year. And sort of with Berube there being the coach, it's going to just, I like a lot about what they have going on there. I'm not, I'm not saying Marner's going to win that, but I think he's going to have just a heck of a year in general.
Contract year, again, we watch those players that are in a contract year.
Yeah.
They want to go above and beyond. So that's why I'm with you there with Marner.
And I think he got a lot of heat with, I guess maybe not looking the best, maybe in playoffs or just kind of when it's crunch time and you got to show up and be like get in the corners and be a little bit somewhat physical and just sort of, be willing to kind of grind things out. I think he's going to prove to people that he's willing to do that this year, and being a contract year sort of kind of pop off like Willie Nylander did when it was his contract year. And I know you mentioned that's a big thing to look for in betting on guys on those type of years. So yeah, we'll see. And as far as the Hart Trophy, I think Kaprizov could kind of get back to being like one of those top 4 or 5 guys in the NHL. I don't know how the Wild are going to be this year, but I think he's like an unbelievable player that doesn't get talked about maybe as enough as he should. So I kind of like him to have a huge year.
All right, like it. Very good. Good choices there. All right, before we end, early Stanley Cup final prediction. Any Stanley Cup futures? Teams you like to win the conference, teams you like to win the Stanley Cup. What are some good value bets that you may be looking at?
Yeah, well, straight up to win the Stanley Cup, I like Dallas. I think they got
knocking on the door. Do they finally break it down? Yep.
Yeah, they've been knocking on the door for quite a while now. Like it's almost time where like they kind of need to do it. I think it's their time. I like the Oilers are obviously like a favorite, and I think they're going to be back there in the same sort of conference finals area. But if I had to put all my money down, I just like Dallas. I liked them last year as well. I thought they were going to beat Edmonton last year too. So that's kind of, and as far as a value bet, I'm going to take the Leafs. I think it's been the same song and dance for them for a while now as well. So between them and Dallas, the Leafs have a way better, the odds for them, I have them at plus 1,400. So if you want some more, a little bit better bang for your buck, but I think the Leafs with Berube, I think he's going to change a little. They got some Tanev and some different D in there. I don't know about their goaltending, but which is a big thing. But I think, the Leafs are just bound to kind of break out of that mold they've been in for the last however many years of getting bounced out in the first round and kind of actually make a push to the conference finals and kind of taking that next step. And whether they actually go further than that. I don't know, but I do love the Leafs to make an actual run.
You know what? How many times have I been screaming and yelling and belly aching over the years? Why the fuck are the Leafs the favorite to win the Stanley Cup on the betting board? I've said that for years, and every year it seemed like they were the favorite or the co-favorite to win the Stanley. Franchise that hasn't done anything in 57 years of failure and counting. But this year they are finally no longer the favorite. Finally, they wised up and decided we can't make this team the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And you can get them at plus, 14-1. I know they're offering a boost at 365 of 16-1 for the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. So now you actually are, for the first time in years, getting some value, at least, in my opinion, to bet the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. So that's why I think that makes sense, is that now I think there's finally a little bit of value with the Leafs. Great stuff. This is a guy you'll be seeing a lot on the show this year, especially on weekends when he'll be joining us. The floor is yours. Any final words you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the year. I think I'm going to be learning a lot from yourself and just sort of how a little bit more into the betting world and sports and how things work a little bit. And really appreciate you having me on this time and look forward to things to come.
No doubt. Calder Brooks will be with us on a recurring basis throughout the NHL season on Saturdays and Sundays. Or it's going to be maybe some Saturdays, maybe some Sundays. It's all depending on his schedule. But he will be with us on weekends throughout the course of the season. Of course, our weekend shows, noon Eastern. It'll be 10 a.m. For Calder out there in Saskatchewan. And, of course, through the week, it'll be, of course, as always, 2 p.m. Eastern with the Ice Guys show. Calder, this has been fun, and we're looking forward to having you as part of the Ice Guys family. I hope you're ready to join us, too, on occasion whenever you can for some of our live betcasts throughout the season as well. When we watch the games at night, we do some drinking. We play some live bets. We're just watching all the games. We bring on our viewers and listeners of the show to join us on the stream. We get some guests like our hockey player guests joining us for a little bit on these betcasts as well. Our first live betcast is for the Frozen Frenzy night, Tuesday, October 22nd, when they have every team playing that night and games every 15 minutes. It's the perfect night to have the first live betcast. So you're always welcome to join us for that for a few minutes if you'd like.
Perfect. No, that sounds good. That'll be that's exciting. That's cool that they do that. I think they need to do more nights like that. And I'm excited, Ian. I appreciate you having me on and look forward to getting things going this year.
I can't wait, no doubt. Calder Brooks, thanks for doing this. And again, you'll be seeing him a lot this year. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been another edition of the Ice Guys Players Suite. Thanks as always for watching.